Welcome to Texas Border Watch, your eyes on the front line for all things immigration, policy, and border security. I'm Jordan Elder. The biggest story across the nation this week has been these protests in cities all across the United States. Immigrations and Customs Enforcement, or ICE, have been ramping up their removal efforts, and that includes at places like work sites and outside immigration courts. Austin has already seen some of these protests start in the last few days. 4 officers were injured in that first night of protesting, and 13 people were arrested. Here's Austin Police Chief Lisa Davis.
Agitators began throwing rocks at officers, and one officer was spit on in the eye by a protester. In response, officers briefly withdrew back to de-escalate to see if it would calm the situation. At that point, the crowd quickly began advancing back toward the federal building. Officers held the line at that point to prevent further property damage and to protect both the protesters and themselves, deploying pepper ball towards the ground to saturate the area so the protesters could not move back toward the federal building. DPS then deployed CS gas to disperse the crowd. The crowd broke up into smaller groups at this point, one of which continued marching and began throwing scooters and barricades into roadways and overturning water barricades. Officers monitored the groups and were able to contain the crowd near 7th Street and Congress. Multiple arrests were made, and the remaining participants moved to the sidewalk and eventually dispersed. There were a total of 4 officers injured. At this time, all officers have been released from the hospital and treated for their injuries. 3 officers were injured by rocks being thrown at the crowd, and these were large, very large rocks. These were no small pebbles. 1 officer sustained a shoulder injury during an arrest, during which he was also spit on. APD arrested a total of 8 individuals. This is them. And the charges range from graffiti at the federal building to harassment of a public servant to failure to obey a lawful order, resisting arrest, and again, interference with public duties. As we prepare for the potential of additional demonstrations, we know that Saturday is going to be a day of demonstrations as well. I want you to know what you're going to be seeing. You're going to be seeing an increase in visibility of officers. We will be at 100% staffing for officers this weekend. Our goal remains clear. It is protect the safety and the rights of everyone, community members and officers alike.
These are just some of the cities in Texas that have either already had ICE protests or they have them planned. We showed you the situation in Austin. Here in San Antonio, there have been 1 round of protests, but more are expected this weekend as well. And Governor Greg Abbott actually sent the Texas National Guard to San Antonio to watch over these protests. And officials told us they didn't ask for that assistance and they hadn't spoken with the governor about it when he ordered it. We've confirmed that a lot of the National Guard members coming to San Antonio were previously stationed at the Texas border. Here are some of the San Antonio city leaders talking about how they're preparing for these events.
The San Antonio Police Department fully supports the right to peacefully demonstrate. We recognize how important it is to protect this fundamental freedom. Our top priority, however, is the safety of everyone involved, demonstrators, bystanders, and officers. We've established protocols to ensure demonstrations are managed safely and effectively. These plans allow for the free expression of First Amendment rights while reducing risks to public safety. If police intervention becomes necessary, it will be carried out according to department policy with strong emphasis on de-escalation and maintaining order. As always, I'm in communication with our state and federal law enforcement partners to coordinate and prioritize public safety for the San Antonio community. We remain committed to keeping the public informed about our actions during these events. Transparency is essential to maintaining the trust and support that we've built in our community. Keeping San Antonio safe is a shared responsibility. I urge all of those who choose to demonstrate to do so peacefully. If you see something suspicious or dangerous behavior, call 911 immediately and move to a safe location.
Disruption, destruction is never appropriate, nor will it be tolerated. So please be safe, San Antonio. And with that, we'll take questions.
Question, did you request the governor to send the Texas National Guard? Was there any conversation about that? Have any advisement on what happened?
No, sir, and nor did we get any advance warning.
Is this the first time that the National Guard, well, the Texas National Guard has been sent to San Antonio? I couldn't find anything in the past.
Chief, Eric, you want to?
No, we have, it has been a significant amount of time since that's happened. We talked about that yesterday. That has not happened in a very, very long time here in San Antonio.
We kind of take everything into account when we plan for these kinds of demonstrations and the possibility of what might happen. So we plan for the worst, and we hope, of course, for the best.
Do you have a line of communication with the Texas National Guard now? You're able to communicate and coordinate?
No. But I will say this, if they happen to be deployed when we're here, we will make, excuse me, we'll make contact with the commander of of that force, and we'll make sure that we know what they're doing and they understand what we're doing.
Our cameras have been near immigration court for over a week now, watching as people are detained by Immigration and Customs Enforcement, and that includes adults and children. ICE sent us a statement about this. The spokesperson says, quote, most aliens who illegally entered the United States within the past 2 years are subject to expedited removals. Biden ignored this legal fact and chose to release millions of illegal aliens, including violent criminals, into the country with a notice to appear before an immigration judge. ICE is now following the law and placing these illegal aliens in expedited removal, as they always should have been. We also have a new update this week on how much Texas will be spending on border security over the next 2 years. Now, we've told you about this proposal before, $6.5 billion for border security. But when all was said and done with session, it only ended up being about half of that, $3.4 billion in the final budget. Now, this isn't a total surprise. Texas leaders had said that because the federal government is more involved in the border, that they would be able to scale back. The question now becomes, where was this money cut? And the answer is from the governor's office. A lot of that money being cut from border wall construction. Republican State Senator Joan Huffman told the Houston Chronicle that cuts seemed appropriate here. Texas will still have a border presence, but the feds will take over a lot of those wall operations. Now, in the federal House budget proposal, which is called by some the one big beautiful bill, there is $46.5 billion specifically earmarked for border wall construction. So it's not like it'll be halted altogether. It's just shifting from state hands back over into federal hands. The Texas Military Department also saw cuts, though not as much. They still have over $1 billion earmarked for border security. Governor Abbott's office told the Houston Chronicle that any reductions in military department staff along the border will be supplemented by federal forces, so you're going to see a similar number of troops out there. We told you a few weeks ago that there's a new military zone along the U.S.-Mexico border, and this one is in Texas. We've now learned the Trump administration has started charging people who illegally cross and enter into that area. According to the El Paso Times, 27 migrants were charged in El Paso County Court on May 27th for crossing into this national defense area. The U.S. Attorney's Office for the Western District of Texas also told us in a release this week more than 340 convictions have already happened for people who are violating that national defense area. Now, something interesting that we'll be keeping an eye on, troops have put up signs all over the area warning people that it's Department of Defense property, but when people were arrested for crossing into the original military zone in New Mexico, a judge dropped those charges. He said the people didn't know they were entering a military zone and that the signs weren't enough warning. Right now you're watching video of those signs being put up in the Texas National Defense area, so we'll be watching to see if anything else is added specifically in Texas to warn people about the area. That's all for this week's Texas Border Watch. You can read more in depth on any of these stories on our websites, news4sanantonio.com and foxsanantonio.com.